Hello and welcome to Internet Roundup. I'm Chuck Bryant. That's Josh Clark. We are the brains behind Stuff You Should Know and the bodies behind Internet Roundup.
Sorry for both.
We're just sacks of cells and skin and hair.
Nothing but a pack of neurons.
Right now, that's what we are. We round up the internet each week and detail a couple of stories that hit our fancy.
Yep. And
this week, which one do you want to start with, buddy?
Man, let's start with the screaming memes.
You found this, and I'm surprised they didn't do it in full. And what we're talking about is the Air Force and the U.S. Armed Forces.
Yeah, back in the 60s.
Dropping basically noise bombs to land and play out a variety of things, but most notably screaming people.
Yes.
People screaming in pain.
Yeah.
Just to be played out in the jungle or wherever they're fighting.
Right.
Enemy combatants.
They call these things pyrotechnic harassment devices, and they were just theoretical, but they theorized that since the human scream has an effect on setting off people's fear centers,
absolutely,
that if we could drop these like human screaming bombs that didn't do anything except simulate these screaming sounds, that you would basically like diminish the morale of your enemy.
They would also blow up if you messed with it.
Well, eventually, yeah.
Yeah.
So they hired this company called
Special Devices,
which is a perfect name for a company working on this kind of thing.
Special Devices, Inc.
And they started to try to build prototypes of things like the screams, gunshot sounds, animals screeching, just things that you would really get on your nerves after a while and just freak you out. And they quickly came to the idea that like these things they can't do it. They didn't have the technology.
Yeah, my favorite line is the neutral scream, which was a mix of male and female versions of cries, and the cries of elephants and panthers. That all equals a neutral scream.
Right.
It's science.
I guess so. I'd like to hear that.
I would too.
I wonder if it's anywhere, because they made recordings and mixes and stuff and then tried to figure out how they could make a device that created this sound.
Right.
They said, this is impossible, but Pentagon, you've given us tens of millions of dollars, so we want you to have something, some sort of parting gift. So we're going to come up with something called a screaming meme, which is basically a box with a loudspeaker and or a microphone.
Yeah.
And then like 5 or 4 loudspeakers that broadcast out the box that you pushed out of the plane.
Yeah.
And just dragged along behind you in a plane. And it could broadcast anything, any recorded sound.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of Apocalypse Now when Robert Duvall is playing Wagner.
Right.
We play Wagner. It scares the beep out of the beep.
Yeah, demoralizing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which makes sense. I mean, I could see this being very effective.
So,
if I was fighting in the bush.
Right.
And all of a sudden I heard panther and elephant screams.
Right. Or even like blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, it would just be disconcerting.
Yeah, especially if you wanted them for like 6 or 7 hours or 8 hours.
Yeah.
So they would drop these screaming memes out. And again, I am not entirely certain if they actually deployed screaming memes or if they just made some prototypes. But the screaming meme made a warbling tone. That's a quote. And I guess they landed on the ground because if the enemy came up to try to turn it off or whatever, kaboom, 20 kilograms of plastic explosive would go off.
Yeah, or if the battery wore down below a certain level,
kaboom,
which I figure would happen to every one of them.
Right, eventually.
Yeah, so it's just a time bomb then.
Basically, that made a horrible sound.
It sounds great to me. I'm surprised they didn't continue it, to be honest.
And we got that story from Dangerous Minds, and they in turn got it from a site called War is Boring.
And they got it from a site called War is Awesome.
And then they got it from Air Force Files.
That's right. By the way, they discontinued the project in 1967. So
I said, we give up.
So much for that.
Please, our people can't take this any longer.
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine testing that thing out? All right.
It's like the world's funniest joke. Remember that Monty Python sketch?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That they deployed in the field and everybody would die laughing. Oh, so good.
A much kinder way to kill your enemy.
Yep.
So this second and last thing, the 5 biggest tech myths perpetuated by TV shows and movies. Where'd I get this?
Vulture?
Yeah, Vulture. I like that site.
Yeah.
We'll go through these quickly. And we talked about the CSI effect before. Basically when people get on juries and they're like, why can't you enhance that photo and show the perpetrator in the reflection of a spoon in the background of that restaurant, like Blade Runner?
Right.
And they said, well, it's because it's not possible.
No, and actually, so this Vulture article, very wisely, like they picked one like that, and then they talked to like an actual expert
Yeah.
and say, is this possible? If not, why? And all of them were like, no, this is not possible.
Sure.
And that one in particular, they said, conceivably, you could do this,
Yeah.
but you certainly couldn't do it from any kind of security camera.
Right.
Because to stream that high of a resolution, you just couldn't do it.
Yeah. You
And
can't enhance something that wasn't originally there to begin with.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that seems to be what all of the like the CSI type shows do. They
Sure.
take, like, as it gets in, it gets grainier and grainier. That part's factual.
Then they hit the focus button.
Right, and then it's like, oh, it's James Bond. I had no idea he was grifting at the casino.
So that's one, cleaning up security footage. Number two is hacking, and their biggest problem with the hacking is it basically shows that hackers never fail.
Right.
Like
and
every hack works.
they can do it really fast.
Yeah.
There's like super quick results. Usually the interface is really like whiz bang kind of stuff, you know?
It's not true.
It's like, you won't get past. And
Yeah.
there's Halle Berry, they rightly point out, from Swordfish.
Yeah. And they say that Mr. Robot, which is one of my favorite new shows.
Is it?
Yeah, do you watch it?
I've not seen it yet.
It's good. I think they say they do a pretty good job in that show. They have technical consultants because they want it to be pretty realistic.
Yeah.
Like they have hack fails.
Yeah,
Mr.
they aren't successful all the time.
What else? Tracking perpetrators with a digital camera. Basically, you can trace any illegal act back to the cell phone of the user who had it in their hand.
Right.
And they said that's not true because they said, and this is good to know actually, from a security standpoint, cell phones are all identical. You can't even differentiate one from another.
I don't understand that, because I thought that there's like those Stingray cases that cops overuse that
we talked about that.
lets you like track an actual individual cell phone.
Yeah.
And I was reading the drone papers that The Intercept just released articles on.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's how they track people for drone strikes, is through individual cell phones. So I don't understand that one. Because then it also says that, yeah, I just have the impression that's not correct.
All right.
I'm no Vulture reporter, but I just don't understand that one.
Well, maybe it's explained here. It says every element of a phone can be duplicated or spoofed. So
Oh, okay.
maybe that's
So if you're an average schmo, you're going to get tracked. But if you're trying
Maybe.
not to get tracked, you can avoid that kind of thing.
maybe.
Okay. All right, that makes sense.
IP encryption, like there's just an encrypt button you can push and it's completely safe.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
And they say that is not true because an IP address is like an address on an envelope. If you want something to go from here to there, the IP address has got to be known at some point.
It has to know where it was coming from and where it's going to.
Yeah.
The routers do. So, yes, you have to have an address.
And then finally, the old DNA test that you clickety-click and you come back with your result in minutes.
Right.
It's more like weeks.
Yeah. And it's also it's a very long process. Basically, so the person has to take the sample, has to run the sample through the process of extracting, then has to analyze it, then has to write a report, and then apparently two other people have to read the report, check out the sample, and agree with it before it's ever like submitted as, here's your DNA analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah, that takes time.
Maybe on the TV shows, they should just say, like, I've got the DNA results back. And they should just say, did you go through all the required steps? They say, you bet I did.
Right. I put a drop of blood on the mouse pad of my laptop, and it immediately ran it through the system, and I got a hit.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
And he verified it, and she verified it.
Yeah.
We're all good.
They were leaning over my shoulder watching it for the 30 seconds it took.
And they list the TV show Dexter, obviously, is the most rabid offender of that one.
I'm sure.
Good show for a while.
For a while. Really went off the rails.
Really went off the rails. Boy, that finale. Oh, something else. All right. Dexter notwithstanding, we will see you in our own murder room next week on Internet Roundup.